Before I get into talking about what melody looks like and breaking it down, first let me tell you, if you haven't read it on the sheet or whatever, my name is Eskelin, and I am a songwriter, producer, aging wannabe Christian rock star, and happy to be here at my home church, Grace Chapel. Welcome. And they asked me today if I would talk a little bit about melody writing, but before I get into that, I'd like to tell you, just to give you a brief history of what has brought me here to this stage, standing in front of you with this microphone. And I'm not going to tell you that I just drove down the street from where I live about 10 minutes away. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my musical journey so you can know where I'm coming from and what angle I'm coming from when I'm talking about writing melody. I remember being, and it happened before this, but I remember being about 13 years old and being completely overwhelmed and overcome by the sense of melody. I remember standing in front of the mirror, like playing air guitar with notes coming out of my mouth, down, and I'm sure some of you people have done that. Come on, be honest. We've all kind of done that. You know what I'm talking about, being overwhelmed and overcome by melody? It's something that just happens inside you and you can't get it to stop. And for me, that was when I was 13. I'm now 42 years old, and it still hasn't stopped. It just keeps flowing out of me like crazy, and I just had to figure out what to do with it. So what do you do when you're 13 and you're overcome by melody? Well, you call all your friends. Well, you didn't call. We walk down the street and ask all your friends who remotely had any kind of inkling of an instrument, do you want to start a rock band? So that's what I did. I was 13 years old. I started a rock band called Right Hemisphere. We were absolutely terrible. It was me on piano, a friend, nice. me on piano, completely out of tune piano, by the way. A friend who was a terrible drummer, and another friend whose dad happened to have a saxophone. So we basically played for my friend's mom. Our only gig was playing for my friend's mom hours on end in these endless jam sessions where we were starting the journey of discovery about what melody is and why it works and what it does to our souls and what it does to ourselves. So fast forward a little bit, and I promise I'll make this background brief, but fast forward a little bit. Okay, I'm a little older, I'm in high school, and all of a sudden I've got a different band, and all of a sudden we're getting a little better, and people start coming to our shows. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. People actually paid money to come to a show. I played 40 minutes of music, and I made $8. I'm a professional musician. Awesome. So that took me through my high school years, and the band that I was in at the time started to do really well. It wasn't a Christian band. It was a band playing in clubs and doing dance music and stuff like that. And I had to make a decision if I was going to go to college or if I was going to continue with this band that was on the up and up. And I thought, man, this is my one shot to be in rock and roll. I got to do this. But I gave in to the wisdom of my parents and ended up going to college and broke my heart that I didn't get to stay with the band that ended up breaking up. But I ended up at Wheaton College up in Chicago, and that was the first time I'd really been around other Christians, and especially not other Christians, but other Christian creative people in a body of believers. I'd never gone to a Christian school. I didn't really know anything about Christian music. I think I'd heard of Petra, but I didn't really know what it was. And I got introduced to Christian music while I was up at Wheaton College, and it just blew my mind and made me so excited that the Christians were actually making rock and roll music. This was like mind-boggling. This is going to be awesome. So I remember having a conversation with God and saying, okay, now's the time. I'm not going to write any more songs about fast cars and girls. Not that I really was, but I wanted my songs to have more meaning, and I wanted there to be a real purpose. And I think that's probably why you guys are here too. We want purpose and meaning in our songs, and we want to glorify God with what we do. So when I did that, all of a sudden, things started to change a little bit. I just sensed God opening some crazy doors, and long story short, I ended up getting, right after college in 1993, I ended up getting my first kind of professional deal. It was with a producer up in Elgin, Illinois, and he signed me to a production deal, and I got to make my first album, which came out on a division of 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 Word, and my album came out with huge fanfare like a firecracker in the night, and it disappeared. So what do you do with that? Well, you keep motoring forward, and that was one kind of bad solo album. Then I did another kind of mediocre, bad solo album, which opened a few more doors. And then I decided one day, I'd kind of built it up over the course of several years, and my big break came. I was going to open for Steve Taylor on a tour, right? So I go out for 3 months in a tour bus with Steve Taylor, and which completely, forever changed how I write songs and what I do. And he was the first guy to tell me that maybe I should, ditch the solo thing and start a band, which is the complete opposite thing to do. I mean, most people are in a band forever, and then they decide, well, I'm better than the band, I'm gonna go solo. Completely reverse for me. Anyway, I tell you all that stuff to tell you that I've had way more failures, way more failures than success. And it's just about motoring through and grinding through and knowing that's your calling and just going for it and not giving up. I'm currently, like I said, 42 years old. I'm not on the road anymore by choice. I'm married for 12 years. I got a great 8-year-old boy who's in school down the street, and I just feel blessed to be able to write songs and produce music for other people, taking the experience and the knowledge and all the things I've learned from all my mistakes that I've made. I'd like to tell you that I learned a lot, but what I really learned on the road and writing all these songs that sometimes worked and sometimes did is that I learned more about what not to do than what to do, and I think that's a huge distinction when you're actually getting into crafting songs, because you can waste a lot of time doing things that are completely unnecessary when you can just get down to the basics. So, speaking of the basics, okay, funny story. About 3 days ago, I was thinking about, man, I should really figure out what I'm going to say to these fine people. I've spoken on writing melodies that soar before. I've spoken on writing, trying to get the craft of songwriting and getting the melodies to fly and feel good. And every time I've done it, it always comes out a little bit different depending on the crowd, depending on what my mood is, and depending on what I feel like talking about. But I decided that maybe it's a good idea. It's my home church. Maybe I should really just kill this one. So I went to Barnes & Noble 3 days ago, and I was looking at the black and yellow books, like Nuclear Physics for Dummies, How to Make Sushi for Dummies. Lo and behold, there's a Songwriting for Dummies book, right? So what do? I buy the book. Because apparently I'm a dummy. So I got this book, I put it in my seat in my little Mini Cooper, and I go pick up a buddy of mine. The guy's name is Mark. He's a longtime audio engineer who I work with, and he sees this, he gets in my car, we're gonna go have lunch, and he sees this book sitting on the seat, and he goes, "Are you kidding me? I've been working for a fraud for 6 years." And I said, yeah, I've literally been faking it till I make it for all these years. So that being said, I cracked open this thing and I realized, you know what? There's some little nuggets of truth in here that I don't want to spend too much time on, but I want to just talk about what I relearned the other day based on this Dummies book. It's fantastic, and I think if we're going to talk about songs, we need to start with the absolute basics. So let's start here with Webster's definition of melody. All right. Webster's definition says it's an agreeable succession of sounds, a sequence of single tones. Right off the bat, I look back at my history of songwriting and I go, man, I can't agree with this because a lot of my songs are not an agreeable succession of sounds. A lot of people just want to turn it off immediately. And that's what we're going to try and do today, is figure out how to not make people turn your songs off within the first 30 seconds. So, some of the basics, the melody really is the transport system and the delivery system for the lyric. And, sometimes that transport system is a rocket ship just blazing a trail, and sometimes that's a little, walk down the beach or a roller coaster sometimes. And we just got to find out how to match those things together to make a really good song work. A melody gets graded. All melodies get judged and graded, and they get judged and graded on two things. First, they get judged on hummability, and second, they get judged on durability. Now, the current state of pop music right now is that, man, I can hum almost every song that comes on the big pop radio station. It's all this dance beat with the la 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 la. Problem with that is they're great hummable melodies, but half of them I can't remember, 3 hours later, and they all sound the same. So how do you get both those things to happen at the same time? got to have hummability, but you also have to have durability. And what I'm talking about by that is, hey Jude, don't bring me down. I mean, simple, hey Jude, 2 notes through the ages, man, you know? Our God is an awesome God. Perfect place for the lift. I mean, hummability, durability, big deal. I'm going to keep motoring through this stuff right now before I get into more of a workshop situation, but I think this is important to know. A great melody is also 2 more things. It's part technical and it's part divine. I like to talk about this by saying that it's perspiration and inspiration. You know, you gotta work through it. Most of you guys were in the seminar lecture thing, not lecture, but the workshop yesterday where we wrote a song in 40 minutes, and I took my shirt off because I was sweating. I mean, writing a good song takes a lot of energy and a lot of passion, and it's something you got to work through. But it's also something that you can't really put your finger on. It's something divine, and it's, you know, how do you find that magic inspiration that is melody? Well, I'm gonna tell you something right now that you could probably just, you know, we could probably just wrap up and you can leave after this. So I'm probably throwing this out there too early, but as a Christian songwriter, when I think about the divine in a song, I think about inspiration. I said this yesterday, some of you may remember, but man, if you're living in the Word, walking in obedience, praying for favor, and do what I do before every co-write, dear God, I pray you download one of your amazing songs into my brain and in my heart right now so I can give it out to people. And I'll tell you what, man, if you do that, all the rest of the junk I'm going to tell you doesn't really matter because it's going to work out for you. But, you know, and I also said this yesterday, I in that idea of the divine, I believe that, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I believe that some great, if not all great worship songs, have already been written in history, and they're already being sung up in heaven. And if we're doing what I just said, praying for favor and asking for a digital download, dear Lord, I believe that He gifts people on earth right now in this time period to sing songs that have already been written. So think about that when you're writing, and know that the divine is a huge deal in songwriting. My mom's calling. Should I get it? Yeah, right. Lyric transcends, the melody transcends the lyric. You know, when you start thinking about great songs, you know, when I was a kid, good night, man, I didn't have a clue what I was listening to and actually got in trouble. My dad threw out a bunch of punk rock cassettes that were talking about all kinds of garbage. I didn't care. I just wanted to hear the beat, and I wanted to hear this crazy melody that was just lifting my soul in this weird way. So I probably shouldn't have been listening to the songs, but now I have an 8-year-old, and he's talking about, oh, I love that Justin Bieber song that's talking about some girlfriend. And I'm like, I don't really want you to listen to that, but somehow it connects to him because the melody transcends the lyric. Think about an opera. I mean, I don't know what in the world they're talking about or what in the world they're singing about, but it evokes such an emotion that people can't help to be, you know, they break out in tears sometimes. They don't know what they're saying. It's because that melody is given it this crazy lift. Now, when you couple those two together, lyric and melody, crazy, amazing things start to happen. Last point on the basics, you know, I loved reading this. If rhythm is the backbone, chords the muscle, lyrics the heart, what does that make the melody? That makes melody the soul. And that's what I'm after here today. I'm chasing that soul. When I'm thinking about melody and I'm in a co-write or I'm writing a song, I'm chasing that soul part of the song. I want to know what it's doing to my emotion, and am I serving the lyric really, really well? Okay, those are some basics. We know what melody is. We've heard the definitions. What in the world? How do we practice this, and what do we do? How do we get there? How do we make it better? These are things we should try and develop. And, you know, I've been doing it since '93. I've got 20-something years of songwriting. I've never had another job out of college. I went right in and just started going for it. And I feel blessed to be there, but it's something you got to work at. We talk about perspiration and inspiration. This is the perspiration part. I still have to do this. I still need to develop first a sense of melody. And how do you develop a sense of melody? Well, for me, it was always about studying and analyzing songs. I would take these songs and just absolutely rip them apart. I mean, I was a keyboard player. I was into dance music, and I loved Depeche Mode. Remember them at all? Yeah, I love it. The sound guy's like, yeah, Depeche Mode. There's a reason why everybody called them depressed mode. Because once I started digging through the song and finding out how it was working, every single song was talking about these groaning, searching for spiritual truth, even though they probably weren't believers, maybe they were. But it was everything was minor keys, these heavy minor keys, and it was just evoking this emotion. So are there any ways that you guys, do you guys do that? Do you analyze songs? Do you tear apart structure? Do you do that? And if you don't, that's the first thing we got to do to start learning about the sense of, finding a melody and attacking it. That's a huge thing. Study, study, study. Do you do that already? How do you do that? Well, just like I said, when I was 16 years old and I was so intrigued by that, I had a little Yamaha DX27 keyboard and a little Fisher cassette tape player, and I would put in these cassettes, and I just remember wearing these cassettes out because I would take them section by section, and with I'd learn the bass line, do 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 do, right? And then all of a sudden I go, what's that hi-hat doing? Put it on a different sound. I would deconstruct the song and break it all down, learn what all the individual parts are doing, and then when you have that, you can rebuild your Lego spaceship into anything you want, And so I'm just, honestly, learning from the best, stealing from the best. And when I say stealing, I'm not ripping off parts and stuff, but I'm using pieces and parts that they've used in their songs and applying them to things that I would do. And no shame in that, man. I would dig deep and start deconstructing some of these songs. Next thing I still need to develop, and you need to develop, we all need to develop, is a method of creating. Do you guys have any method to your madness in creating melody? Do you sit in the quiet? For me, I pick up the guitar, or I'll sit at the piano, and I'll just start noodling. Do you ever do that? Just seeing what comes out, seeing what pieces are good. Do you do that? How else do you do it? What do you do? Noodle at the piano. Hey man, sometimes I'm driving around in traffic and it's all chaos, and I got a horn over here and a horn over here, and all of a sudden it goes, doot, doot, seatbelt lights going, or the turn signal, song, boom, doot, doot. All of a sudden, man, something starts happening, and I got to pick up my phone and go, oh man, I got to put this down, which brings me to my next thing we got to do. We still need to develop a way to collect and remember our songs. I am absolutely notorious for singing something in a songwriting session, and literally 15 seconds later, gone, just disappears. Does that ever happen to anybody? Happens to me all the time. I'm supposed to be a professional. It's not working. So find a way to capture those things. I just put them on my iPhone. I've tried some of the apps, in here that are helpful. Computer, some of you guys have studio setups. Just capture all the time, man. We have a lot of times I'll be writing with a young band or something, and there's 4 different recorders going at the same time, because you just don't want to miss that magic moment. Keep it by your bed. Capture that melody in the middle of the night. You've done that, right? Yeah. Dude, absolutely, man. Those riffs coming to you in dreams, man. I love it. Yes, sir.
Sometimes if you're listening to a song, it could be at the mall, it could be down the hall, and if you can't hear the bass part, but you're just hearing the melody, you can hear a different bass, and it can cause a different mood.
That's exactly it, man. And we're going to look at that a little bit later when I'm talking about my remix philosophy about songwriting melody, but that's exactly it, man. It can come out of nowhere. You just got to be ready to capture it. So then once we got all that going, we've got a sense for it, we've, figured out a method, we're finding ways to actually do it. We got, we're collecting it, remembering it. Well, then we got to piece it all together and figure out how to put it in a coherent song, right? So shoot, how do you do that? Well, kind of what you were talking about. Sometimes I'll have these ideas and I'll have this melody and it's kind of working, but it's not really feeling right. I'll pull the song apart. Maybe I keep the melody the way it is, but I change all the chords around it. You almost just deconstruct it, and almost like a remix philosophy where you're like doing a dance remix. You've heard these songs where it's an old Madonna song or something, and then you hear a commercial on TV and it's a completely different version, but the melody's all the same. Don't be afraid to do that to your own songs. I've found that some songs that I've written that I thought should be major key, all of a sudden is now, I just for the sheer purpose of trial and error, I just change all the chords underneath and make it minor, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, look at that, man. That actually works. Pretty cool. So, all right. those are things we need to work on to develop, to get things going with our melody. But man, okay, so that's all fine and good, but how do you actually make a memorable melody? We're talking a little bit about keys, minor and major. Number one thing, man, it's got to fit the mood. You know, if the key should lift the lyric. You know, like we talked earlier about the transport and the delivery. If we're delivering that in the wrong way, if it's a fast song, or I talked about rocket ships and that kind of stuff, and if we're doing the wrong thing and not serving the lyric well, it can be bad. I think what I should do, actually, when we're getting into this, is grab this guitar. Sometimes you just gotta let it out. Don't be afraid to combine keys. Like we were in the songwriting thing we were doing yesterday. You know, sometimes you might be setting up your verse minor that fits a dark, broken lyric, and all of a sudden you get to the chorus and it's uplifted. You know, I'm major now. You know, it's like the lift. All of a sudden we've got power and praise in the chorus, and I'm broken here. You know, minor. Don't be afraid of that. Combine those keys, mix it up. Sometimes, have a dark verse with an optimistic chorus. You know, you can go complex or you can go extremely simple. Some songs need a good, crazy cadence, like I don't wanna na 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 na, or it's a bit frenetic if the concept of the song is not doing that. I don't want to slow it down now. I'm gonna slow the rapid fire down, depending on what the lyric needs to convey. So there's a lot of this stuff is you're already doing, but I'm just putting it into an outline for you. So I'm gonna move on to what I like to call, it's called constructing your song by section. I mean, I like to break pop music down into section. Worship music, are we in the intro, the verse, the pre-chorus, the chorus, the bridge, the outro? I mean, there's a lot of different names for different things. But I'd like to show you an example of something. I like to call this the Evel Knievel approach to songwriting. Do you know who Evel Knievel is? Some of you younger people. He's that crazy guy who just would jump like the Grand Canyon and break every bone in his body on a motorcycle. I'm not saying we need to do that when we write songs, but there is an interesting idea in there, and it goes something like this. I'm making this up on the spot now, okay? So here we go. I'm Evel Knievel. I'm revving my engine. Oh, I'm creating tension. I just made that up. I'm creating tension. All the people are looking at me. What am I gonna do? Oh, I'm getting faster and I'm heading into the pre-chorus. I'd like to call it the ramp. And I'm revving my engine faster, getting faster, and suddenly here I am. I'm jumping the buses. Oh, I'm flying. I'm sailing so far up in the sky. Oh, and then I'm on the other side in the second verse. I'm back down here, right? You like that? Golly, I'm an idiot, man. I'm songwriting for dummies. Oh, I'm the dummy. All right, so you get it. Here comes the pre-chorus. We're catching the ramp. Here comes the ramp, and suddenly I'm flying. Oh, I'm flying over the buses. Oh, and then they get to the bridge. Maybe it's something crazy out of nowhere you never heard before, and it's like, oh, I botched the second landing. I broke every bone in my body. Whatever. The idea is, I'm trying to serve that terrible lyric with tension. God, there's tension. What's he gonna do? All of a sudden, here comes the ramp into the chorus, which I like to call the pre-chorus. And then what am I doing? I'm lifting that soaring melody for the chorus, and I'm just flying. So that's a very simple approach to songwriting, but let's break it down by section. Verse. What am I doing? Creating some tension. I'm not overdoing it, and I'm not stepping on my big melody of the chorus. I'm not even stepping on my melody of the pre-chorus. I'm getting out of the way so I have some place to go. So a lot of times when you hear and my early songs were the exact same way. I'd be here in the verse, and I'd be here in the pre-chorus, and all of a sudden now, I'm on the same note in the chorus, and it's starting to bore us, right? So now there are all sorts of, rules you can break. It's creative, it's songwriting, we can do whatever we want. You can have a chorus that's lower than the verse, I've done it. If it fits the song, it works. But for the most part, especially in early songwriting, start to tear apart other people's songs and realize what they're doing. And I think 9 times out of 10, you're gonna find that there's this ramp that soars up to get people to just fly and feel good. You're talking about the divine, you're talking about the soul. We gotta tap into that with our melody. So here's another thing though. When you start thinking about a song like How Great Is Our God and worship songs, it is interesting how a lot of songs for the church are congregational, so some of these rules don't actually always apply because the congregations are not singing huge octave ranges. So, when you listen to, I think there's only a few songs that actually do it. Is it Brent Brown? Is his song? Oh no, you never let go. Is that him? Matt Rubin, that's what I meant. Sorry, Brent. He was just here. He broke all the rules of worship that I've been taught. But that goes to show you, who cares about the rules? It's got to feel good. But that is an octave. And if you listen to How Great Is Our God, he's right there. He's not moving too much. But still, the melody's moving, and he's like surfing a wave, man, So, like I said, don't take everything I'm saying here as canon, but you can, try the stuff out, and maybe it'll lead you in some new direction. Pre-chorus, we talked about that. It's the ramp. Chorus, we talked about that. Soaring should give you goosebumps. Man, if you're a songwriter, that's like the number one thing, the greatest achievement you can have. I don't care about awards or nominations or all that junk or number one songs, but if you're going to co-write and all of a sudden you get goosebumps, I literally show that to people. I go, see that? That doesn't happen that much, So if you can get that, just play with those melodies and that lyric until it feels like you got goosebumps on your arm, and then you got something. So let's talk about this. Oh yeah, bridge. I don't want to forget the bridge. The bridge for me is an interesting thing because you got to make 3 choices on a bridge. You've got to decide whether you should step it up even more, like I'm flying on these buses, and here's my big thing. I'm gonna go to the bridge now. I'm in the bridge. I'm driving it home. Some big nugget of truth is probably there in a bridge. A lot of bridges lyrically will sum up your whole song and tie it all together. And how are you gonna deliver that? And how are you gonna make that happen? Sometimes it needs to go high. Sometimes for impact, it just needs to get out of the way. I broke every bone in my body, So there's that, and then sometimes, and this is something you really need to think about. Does your song actually need a bridge? Sometimes it just might go to a 4-bar, 8-bar solo section that just needs you need a break from the lyric, and that's just trial and error songwriting. So think about that if it's up or down or none at all. And speaking of that, let's talk about the lyric for a little bit. I've been talking about melody, but the lyric is so absolutely important, and you got to know what to do with it. And just a simple example of this is, I was working with a guy a couple weeks ago, and great songwriter, and just up and coming guy, and he had this line like, I want to lift you high, I want to lift you high. You already know what I'm going to say, right? We got to serve that lyric well. We made a simple little tweak, which blew his mind. I'm like, dude, seriously? I want to lift you high. Oh, I want to lift you higher, right? Higher than the first one. So just think about serving that lyric. I mean, I remember doing my first band record. I had a band called All Star United, which kept me really busy through the 90s. I toured my guts out. And I was doing my first solo album, and I had a great A&R guy named Chris Smith, and he put me through the ringer, man. He just deconstructed my songs for me and at me and with me. But I'll never forget some of the things I learned, which is exactly that, you know. We gotta think about who we're playing for and who we're writing for and think about the listener and what we need to serve the lyric well and figure out what the melody actually should be doing. And it's not that difficult to figure out, you know. Beautiful thing. That was another song on that All-Star United that first All-Star record. It's a beautiful thing. That's what I was doing every chorus. And he goes, simple thing. He goes, listen, man, what are you talking about? It's a beautiful thing to be loved by you. Swap those two phrases around, which originally was, it's a beautiful thing to be loved by you. Made all the difference in the world in song, and it probably, you know, I think it had a bigger life because of that. So, something to think about. A few more things I want to talk about in this melody thing before we dive into what you guys are, interested in hearing. I've been blowing hot air here for about 30 minutes. So, here's some funny stuff that I put into practice all the time. When you're in a writing situation and maybe you're with a stranger, I'm constantly in rooms with strangers trying not to embarrass myself, kind of like right now. I've used this phrase before, you gotta dare to suck. And what I mean by that is that don't be too precious with your song to throw out an idea that you think you might get made fun of or laughed at. And when I'm talking, that could be lyric, but especially melody, man. We hear so many stagnant melodies that are just these same things, nothing wrong with that. Stir it up sometimes. Just do something crazy, man. I don't know. And, they're looking at you like, we can't do that. And all of a sudden, 10 minutes goes by, and they go, man, I just can't get that out of my head, it's something just random. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to just throw the most random melody out there, because sometimes you might stumble onto magic, and that's what I call daring to suck. So it's a funny one. Another huge thing for me that I do on a practical level, I did mention this yesterday for some of you, it's not enough to just create. It's great to create, but it's not enough. You have to create and complete. I remember I was holding on to my songs so dearly because I didn't want to finish them almost, because if I did, I'd have to play them for somebody. And then you open yourself up to all kinds of issues and woundings and oh man, are they gonna like it? Are they not gonna like it? But nowadays I write so many songs that I just enjoy the moment, create it, and force myself to complete. I mean, I had buckets and buckets of songs that I didn't write the second verse, I didn't write the bridge, I didn't know how to do it yet. And here's the thing, write the melody, write the bridge, get it done, you can always rewrite it, I'm constantly rewriting, but sometimes you're not going to be able to even think about a rewrite unless you've got something to deconstruct. I've used that word a lot these days, and even today. But don't be afraid to deconstruct your song and to write it again, write it over again, write it over again. But if you finished it the first time, you'll know what's good and know what's bad by playing it for people. So you might have magic in there that you just forced yourself to do, a day. My whole songwriting career absolutely changed when I figured out that concept of creating and completing. There's so much to talk about melody. I want to serve you guys well, and I want to just be, speaking at you. I want to speak with you. So are there any things you guys would like to talk about or ask or understand a little bit better? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I want to talk about that. That's great. Thanks for bringing that up. Was that a point, or is that your kind of... Okay, so yesterday in this songwriting class, we were given a topic, right? And it was something about we're divided as a nation, we're divided as believers, we need to be united again. And it was Benji Cower started reading about kingdoms, and he started saying that, we're not citizens of this world, we're citizens of a different kingdom. And all of a sudden it was like, ding, 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 there's our song title, Citizens, right? And so we constructed the song in 40 minutes. this is a great question and a great point, because if I'm chasing that lyric and trying to figure out what it feels like, I get so stuck, and many people do this, they get so stuck with the tight particulars of what their melody is that they can't get around it. I mean, I'm constantly in those co-writes with young artists that are like, they don't even want to work on the grand idea and getting the point across until they've got the intro riff worked out. And I'm like, dude, if you've got a great theme and a great title, start piecing this together in sections, like I talk about the Lego spaceship. Start piecing the foundation together. Start figuring out, okay, what do we need to discuss in this first verse to set up the ramp, the pre-chorus, the Evel Knievel ramp in the pre-chorus, and then what's our chorus saying? Is it an optimistic, yeah, we are citizens of a different world, right? That's optimistic and positive for me. And we did the same thing yesterday, talking about tension. Like, well, we're just waging war, that kind of thing, against each other, we should be loving, you know. I hold on really loosely in a co-write to the stuff. I might write 7 melodies over an 8-bar verse in the course of 10 minutes just to get the lyric right. Once the lyric's right, then I go back and, like I say, remix, deconstruct, and start figuring out, then you can really start scoping it and figuring out what it is, which word should fall where, what feels right. But in those sessions when you're trying to write fast and trying to get it done, and maybe you have an artist with you or a person who's only got an hour and a half of your time, and then they're on the road for 7 months, I let the song and the idea be bigger than capturing every little detail. So that's another thing you can do. Hold loose, run fast, and try and get the grand idea down. You can tweak all day long, you know, months even, but it's harder to do if you haven't got the original idea down. Awesome. What else, guys? We want to talk about? Quality. I mentioned just a moment ago, playing it for your friends. I mean, it takes practice. We talked about inspiration and perspiration and all that stuff. You're going to know when stuff starts to get better by the reaction of your husband or the reaction of your friends. And you can't play anything for them unless you've created it and completed it. So, I mean, I've got 1,000 songs in my catalog, and I'm only making a living probably. Realistically, I'm only making a living on maybe 40 of them. So you just have to keep throwing them out there, making it happen. Oh, and another thing, talking about quality, sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 songs that I kind of like a lot, and I've got an emotional attachment to them, but maybe they're not getting cut, maybe no one's really wanting to use them on their record, maybe I just can't find a home for it or a place. I'll go back 2 or 3 years later and say, man, that's a bummer that song never worked. Well, what is it about that didn't work? Well, I love the chorus. The verses are I love the chorus. I'll take that chorus piece, turn that into a verse of another song, take another song that maybe had the similar fate, maybe I love the verse of that, tweak a couple lyrics to make it connect, boom. Try taking 3 of the songs you've written, 3 choruses, streaming it together in verse, pre-chorus, chorus, or verse, chorus, bridge. Take those 3 choruses, put them in this, not opposing keys, but just see what happens, and see what happens melodically, and see if it takes your ear to a weird place. Maybe it's not going to be a good song, but if you string 3 choruses together, it's interesting what happens. You can even do that with other people's songs. Mash them up. Take the best parts of songs you love and put them together and see what happens. I mean, talk about quality. Find the best parts of the songs you love, dump the rest, And you only do that by playing for people. I mean, you gotta get out there and not playing. You don't have to play live. You just gotta play the stuff for people. Honest people. My dad loves everything I do. Absolutely not. I mean, it's good when you can get some feedback, but I mean, my wife's not a music person, and I will come in the house saying, "Oh my goodness, I just stumbled across the greatest song today. I gotta play it for you." She's doing the dishes, and I'm like, "Play it," and she's like, "Nice." Crap. redo. Oh, man. And like a couple hours go by. What did you not like about that? I love this theme. This is great. This is not theologically accurate. You know, got to fix that. So, yes.
Do you find that sometimes you can get stuck in one particular genre, like worship songs? Sometimes I just get stuck because it seems like so many of them are saying the same things right now. I'm trying to think of something fresh. Have you ever been thought, you know what, I'm just going to write a country song.
Absolutely.
I'm going to write a pop song.
You know, absolutely. I'm a producer and a writer, and you know, it's very easy as a producer and writer to get stuck in one genre. I mean, like I said earlier, I was doing kind of dance music, and you almost have to reinvent yourself every 3 or 4 years just to kind of stay relevant. When I first got started in Christian music production, I'd come from a kind of a rock band world. I was a BMG Nashville country writer for 3 years. You know, I kind of did that for a while, and it was I didn't actually get any country cuts, but I actually learned a whole heck of a lot about writing songs. I mean, those country guys are insane, man, with the craft of songwriting. But I really go out of my way right now to lobby to be a part of projects that are not what people would associate me with. I mean, if you look at, you don't have to do this, but if you were to look at the albums I've worked on over the last while, I was a stellar cart punk rock guy, making records for Huck Nelson and stuff like that when I stumbled across Francesca Battistelli, and you know, how in the world were they going to let me work on that one, you know? And I just said, guys, there's something here, man. And I worked my ever-loving butt off to create some demos and write some songs that there would be no question in anybody's mind I was to be the guy. And thank you, Lord, it worked out, and it's been a really fun time working with her. But genre, you just got to get yourself out of the mode. If you're writing one song, worship all day long, it's awesome, man. I mean, I love writing worship stuff. Sometimes, after I did a Point of Grace record, I had to go do a punk rock record. You know, I just was like, I cannot think of another 4-part harmony right now. I've got to do this for 3 hours. You know, so set up some challenges for yourself. You know, I still make records with my fake rock and roll band, All Star United. I still make records just so I can say things that are different, and I get away with anything in those records because no one cares. But I do them for my own craft and good. Get the ideas out. So don't be afraid to try weird stuff. Yes, sir.
Do you primarily write with one instrument, or do you have more than one instrument? Does it make a difference as to what your melody sounds like if you're writing with a different instrument?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll go, you know, sometimes you'll walk in with a guitar and you'll be playing, and I've heard these chords a lot. You just get old, man. Sometimes I do this lately. I call it capo month. You know, I literally will start a co-write, randomly putting it way up at the neck, because the chords feel different. Even if you're playing the same ones, they just feel different. They take your mind headspace someplace else. You know, piano, sometimes when you play piano, I'm not a very good piano player, but I know enough to be dangerous. But I like all these weird diminished chords. It makes a different song and a different melody, and I've got to gauge who I'm writing with and where their headspace is and what lyric they're bringing in or idea. You know, it definitely helps. I mean, if you're writing with a mandolin, you're going to write something a little bit more earthy, probably. You know, I always write Irish pub songs whenever I have a mandolin. You know. Yeah, exactly, man. That's exactly it. That's cool. Yes, sir.
I have one that might be applicable to others. If suppose you've got a melody you like, it's got maybe 12 notes that this pick. How do you do the slider between I'm going to have 2 words with a slur across, or I'm going to have 12 monosyllable words? So how do you pick the slider so that
The slider word?
No, the slider meaning like, and then another 2 words versus you have 12 one-syllable words.
Man, that's part of the divine right there. You know, how do you explain where that comes from? But you just got to go with your gut and go with feel. And the more you work on we talked about sense of creating it and recording it and remembering it. The more you do that and realize where it works, I mean, you don't want to be like, here's an example. You don't want to be glorifying unnecessary words in your song, right? I'm making this up right now. God, you are the Holy One. God, you are the Holy One, right? Don't hang on the. Don't hang on the. Don't hang on the and. Don't hang on the cause. You know what I mean? It's like serve the lyric well, find out where it's supposed to be. So I don't know if that helps, but yes.
I think something that I find myself struggling with is like perfection and always wanting to keep going back to it, like you said.
Yeah.
And then it's never done. And I know every song like has its own journey,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you say it's downloaded into your brain. Like,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. It could be done right there because if you feel like that's straight from the Lord, but I want to
True.
keep pushing.
Well, some songs just need to be done. And
How do you know, like, how do you walk away from it?
well, I joke with my wife about this because she's not a music person, and it drives her crazy when I say this because this is my job. I make a living writing songs for people, but I always tell her, I say, once I've finished a song and I feel like it's pretty there. Let's say I wrote it in a day, or 2 days or whatever. I write it, turn it in, finish it, wait for feedback, right? But if I've done it to the best of my ability and I'm done with it, man, I motor on and move on mentally and spiritually from that song. And I actually have a joke. I say I just write them off as dead and let them out the door and say, man, I hope you grow up to be a good song one day. I'm in the middle of that right now. It's with the girl Francesca Battistelli. Amazing songwriter, great singer. We wrote this song. We thought it was done, and it is done. It's a great song as it is right now. But to impact radio, we're getting feedback from radio going, you got to say this, you can't do that, right? So, in my mind, it's done. I was happy with it as it is. But if you're starting to get good feedback, especially for people who are going to try and sell it, first verse got rewritten. The last line of the chorus got rewritten. So that's what you got to do. Finish them, move on to the next thing quick. Once you get feedback, then you go back. Good luck with that. It's not easy, I know. Yes? Yeah, I just use the voice memo on the iPhone. That's what I use. And it's funny, almost everybody I write with now does the same thing. Some people just keep them rolling the whole time. I just get the iPhone with the most memory capable.
Back 'em up. I lost my iPod.
Yeah, back it up. Well, a lot of times, I don't know, does the iCloud go? Does it just? Oh, yeah. But, yeah, back them up. A lot of times, I'm moving pretty fast. I'll write them, and then we're starting a demo process pretty quick, so I don't really back them up. But maybe that's a good idea, good point. Yeah. Great question. Great question. I write. As a published songwriter, I have to write 12 songs a year, right? That's my quota. If I co-write those, I've got to write 24 songs a year. If they're thirds, you do the math. I got to write a lot of songs. And I was saying this yesterday. I don't have time for writer's block. I just got to keep pushing on because that's what's expected of me. And I've got a limited time with this artist who, heard that I can write a song. Shoot, I hope I'm good today. I don't think twice about quota because I was talking to Ben Glover. You know who he is? He's going to be here tonight. Great songwriter. I've produced a lot of his songs. He's a killer songwriter. He told me, I don't believe in writer's block. Really, what do you do? And we just started discussing a little bit, and we kind of do the same things. Let me think about what I do. I didn't write this down, but this is good, making me think. Melody does seem to pour out of me. Lyric, for me, if I have a lyric, a title of a song, I have a title book. I constantly write down titles, because if you have a title, what I like to do is figure out the really big theme of the song. And I'll tell you this, great pop songs, great worship songs, great songs have a really tight focus. They're not drifting around. I know we're talking about lyric now, but they're not drifting around like New Testament in the first verse, Old Testament in the second, Dead Sea Scrolls for the bridge. That's not it, really, really tight focus. So what I find, if I can find a great title of a song, maybe it's something I heard Pastor Steve say in church, which I have written down before. I've joked with him I should give him publishing. If I have a great title, I like to work backwards, both lyrically and melodically, to try and figure out what that title means. And titles are not copyrightable. I'm not telling you to go out and steal something, but, I've probably written 100 songs with Paul from the Bible. You know what I mean? You just don't be afraid to open up the scripture and find a verse that's got a real tight focus in Proverbs or something that's just, man, that's a great sentiment. What does that look like? Oh, we're going to write a song about being divided. Oh, what's the title? Citizens. Neat, A lot of times, if I can find something I'd like to write about, I'll just Google it and then look at all the phrases around it. Try and find a really concise, great title, and then work backwards to see what your melody should do. That helps a lot for me. The other thing you can do is just immerse yourself in music. Sometimes I'll just sit and listen to Spotify, random artists that I should never be listening to. I mean, it's like I would have never thought of. You know how you can know if you like this one, you might like this one. I'll go 10 deep and get like into some bizarre subgenre of weirdness, and I'll hear something that's just like, wow, I never would have thought of that. And then you don't steal it, but you can be inspired. I do that all the time. I don't believe in writer's block if you're doing that. Getting close to lunch, guys. 8 minutes of truth. Come on, what do we got? Yes. Yeah. I always joke that Facebook is the new way to brag. It has stopped me from tweeting. I gotta get back on that thing, but I do cringe a little bit when some of my friends are like, I just wrote this brand new amazing hit song. You have to hear it. There's nothing really wrong with that. I don't really do that, but you have to be, first of all, to start going down that road, you have to be extremely confident in your work. You're not going to get there until you practice, and write 1,000 songs. You need to be writing at least a song a week. I'm writing 5 to 6, 7 songs a week right now. Some of them are never going anywhere, but it's the practice that keeps going, and you might find something that works in another song. But to directly answer your question, if your stuff's getting better and better, people are going to sniff you out. They're going to know. Something's going to happen. People are going to find out what you're doing. And, don't be afraid to set up a cold call meeting with the publisher. If that's what they're there to do. They're not going to always return your phone call, but if stuff just keeps coming in better and better and better, I mean, Benji Cowart, I don't know if you've met him here this week. This is kind of a small group, so we're all getting to know each other. I like that. It took him 6 years talking to Word Publishing before they pulled the trigger and signed him. And now he's, written all kinds of cool songs on people's records. But that relationship was started 6 years before he started actually writing songs that are worthy, So don't be afraid to connect with people here today and say hi. And people have sent, I encourage you not to do this to me all day long, but people have sent me songs on Facebook, and I'll listen. Shoot back my sentence, see if it sparks anything in you. I don't know. I've sat there before trying to figure out what to do. I don't know if that helps. Yeah.
Could you talk about maybe melody and lyric writing for verse 2?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. A lot of times, even with the evil Knievel approach, you've got this setup. You're about to jump these buses. Your chorus is this powerful, lifting, serving the people. Yeah, man, this is awesome. Or if it's that type of song. Well, we've just blown everything we want to talk about. What do we say in the second verse? What I'd like to do is look at the meat of the chorus. And if we're talking about, let's say the first verse is like, man, I'm broken, I need some redemption and peace in my life. And all of a sudden, the pre-chorus is like, oh man, I'm finding there is hope, and it's Jesus. And boom, the chorus says like, he is awesome, he is powerful. Then I'll take those nuggets of truth in the chorus, and when I get into the second verse, I'll start explaining what that looks like to myself, right? Well, what does that look like? Well, that looks like kindness and joy. That looks like this. So take the nuggets of truth in the chorus and expound on them in the second verse. That's what I'd like to do if I get stuck. And man, don't be afraid to keep it personal. There's a lot of social commentary songs out there, which are fine, but man, people get drawn in when you're talking about, I did this, and man, don't be afraid of the I, Melodically, a lot of times what I like to do in the second verse is do a derivative of the first verse where maybe it's almost exactly the same, but I'm adding 6, 7, or 8 more words in the middle. So first verse is like, you're here doing and I want to love you. Yeah, I'm gonna love you, right? Second verse, I'm gonna do the same lyric. But I want to love you. I wanna give it to me, na 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 na. Same idea, derivative, more words. We're still in the ballpark, but that's fresh, that's new. Don't be afraid of that. Anything else, guys? Yeah, man. Not at all. Good night. That is the country music, go-to. So, and in Christian music too, man, people want to know what you're dealing with. They want to know how to find some hope. So I'm constantly writing. In Christian music writing, I always joke that there's this thing called testing, where they take your song and they'll test it for a panel of people, and they'll listen to like 20 seconds of your song that you wrote for such artists who should be doing well on radio, and then a group of people you don't know sitting in a room somewhere in Denver or something, or have a buzzer, and the next thing you know, your song is not a radio single anymore because it didn't move any needles in 14 seconds. So, oh man, so I'm constantly thinking about how I'm going to drive home lyrically and melodically as quickly as possible. I constantly say, don't bore us, get to the chorus. I'm like trying to get there in 30 seconds, man. If I can do 4 lines lyrically and melodically into that chorus, those are challenge. That's the challenge I love about songwriting, those types of little situations. Couple minutes before I put some food in my belly. Yes, sir. Again, we're stepping on that divine. I like to talk about lift and serving the lyric well and trying to figure out where it should go. But sometimes you just listen back and go, that just feels right. Goosebumps is where it's at. So, yeah, it's a little bit of both. You got to, like we said earlier, you got to have the technical and the divine, the perspiration and the inspiration. I wish I could just tell you that this is the magic way to do it, but all the things we talked about, analyzing, studying, practicing, ripping apart, putting it back together, rewriting, being done, maybe coming back to it 6 months later if it's not really doing anything for anybody. So you'll know when you got something great. It's like saying, Mom, when do I know that she's the one? You'll know. I knew. Boom, done. So I wish I could give you a great answer. Yeah. My gig is very weird right now because when I first started out, I was just an artist writing songs for me. I'd write 10 songs and that was a done album. Go tour. Write 10 songs, done album, go tour. Now, I always joke that I'm writing in the smallest sandbox on the planet. I've got Christian music is like I'm trying to build this huge castle and do it up differently than anybody else has heard it or seen it in the smallest little confinements of what you can actually talk about. So. Now I get real specific demands on, I was saying yesterday, I might have a co-write next week that says, I'll look at my calendar, my publisher sets up my calendar for me, and I'll have, 10 o'clock, or 2 o'clock, maybe both. I write a couple songs a day sometimes. And, for this one, the A&R guy said we have to have female up-tempo, quirky lyric with positive truth in the chorus. Well, shoot, man, that's tight. You know, I got nowhere to build my sandcastle, man. So I would not be able to do what I'm doing now if I hadn't told you about all the mistakes I'd made earlier writing songs that maybe weren't connecting. I just don't, I've learned what not to do. So we're about out of time, I think. One more.
Do you like Taxi songwriting, getting feedback for people, that maybe wouldn't be able to, have full fees?
Say that again.
Have you heard Taxi?
No.
Songwriting feedback service.
Sounds great. That's awesome. I mean, anytime you can get feedback on your stuff, that's killer. You know? Awesome. Guys, thanks a lot, man. I hope I didn't bore you too bad.